So let me get started by asking you all, and you can put in the chat if any of these things resonate with you. In your career, life, business, all of your endeavors, have you felt stuck, maybe overlooked, or just not seen and heard? Feel free to chat and share if you've had any of these experiences with the group. Because frankly, I was over it. I felt all those things. I spent 25 years in corporate America working for companies like Apple, NCR, HackerOne, some startups, and it really burned me out. And not only did I feel burned out, I felt spit out, unappreciated, and it just got me out of control. I felt out of control in my career and my life. Honestly, it just makes me a little teary-eyed thinking about it. But through a lot of self-reflection, meditation, and rediscovery, I started down a new path. And it was really because I felt like if you can't change the sandbox you're in, it's time to build your own. So that's part of my story. And that's part of my mission. My name is Janelle Carlson, and I'm here to talk about how I want to help folks like you, women, entrepreneurs, level up with the power of their personal brand. And it really starts with your story. Because when you have a strong story, you can create the influence and trust needed to exceed any of your goals. It can be, just personal goals, or it can be career goals. And when we look at what our life is about, there is a lot out of our control. There's a lot of stress and anxiety around career or business and uncertainty. And we might not be able to take control of what other people are thinking, our employers or our clients, but you can take charge of your story and your influence. And that's what personal branding is about. It's about you betting on you and investing in you. It puts you in the driver's seat and in control. So when I was in roles at these companies and I felt stuck and anxious, it really eroded my confidence. But when you go out and you start speaking externally or sharing your story and your unique value, people start seeing you differently, and then you start seeing yourself differently. And that's the real value of the investment. So that's what I'm here to talk to you today about is personal branding and your story. And I'm a marketer, and this is a marketing strategy, but it's also personal development. And that's what I'm so passionate about because I really want to help people level up. So in the chat, sorry, I lost my flow here. All right. So we talked a little bit about personal branding and what it means to all of you, but let's get to the root of the definition of how I see it. And I see personal branding as the intentional strategic practice of defining and expressing your value. And so the goal of it is to bring you in charge of the narrative about you. So it's not other people talking about you and what they think about you. It's you defining what that is and your value and getting it out, however you decide. You might be at a place right now that I just want to know my story. So in a future state, as I'm building, I might have a channel for it, and I'm not ready, and it's okay. Others of you have a podcast already, you have a business, or you're in a career pivot. But knowing what your value is and strategically trying to express that in ways that you're comfortable with is putting you in control of your own narrative. And that's what it all starts with. So, what we're going to get into today is how to begin crafting your story. And I'll cover two critical elements of your personal brand story, and this is what we'll workshop on, is talking about your why and your uniqueness. The third component that's really critical for a personal brand is to think about your audience and who you're trying to connect with and reach. And that's a whole nother workshop on its own, and we don't have time to go through all of that. So we're going to just focus on you in this, in these breakouts, and talk about your why and your uniqueness. So why? The why matters in personal branding. Um, it is because your why creates your story and connection. It's your authenticity. It makes people clear in what you're about. I heard some folks saying that I've got too many things. It's not clear. And then it builds that connection. When you're authentic, it it has a core motivation that allows people to genuinely connect with you. Because frankly, people can sense BS. If you're not authentic, they will get it. They'll know it's not you. The clarity. If it's too much information, they don't know you're all over the place, you'll feel misguided and they'll feel misguided. So it's becoming clear on the value providing. And then that connection. Your why creates that emotional connection. Do people feel like you get them and vice versa? So that's the building. And I use Elisa as this example. Like her story, her journey connected with you. Her authenticity is real. You can feel her heart. You can feel that she's very clear in her message and she brings that in. So she is really an epitome of a great personal brand because she knows where she stands. And it's not for everyone, and it is okay. You don't have to reach all people. You just have to reach the people you want to reach, right? So that's what it's about. So today, these are the two critical elements that we're going to talk about. Oops. And we're going to start out with our why. And we're going to do the breakouts again. And I don't know, Elisa, if it's going to be the same groups or not. But what I want you to discuss for a few minutes is why you decided to do what you're doing. You already talked about this. And, not all of you are in a business path or a career pivot or whatever, but, why is it that you're kind of wanting to get into your story more and get a couple levels deep? So I, for example, could say I'm doing my own business to make a living. That's my why, but it's really not. So when I get deeper, I'm like, why this? Well, I'm really passionate about marketing and storytelling. It's been my career journey and I'm good at it. But that's still not it. It's like, why does it really matter to me? Is because my voice was stifled. I was not heard and I didn't own my story. And I let other people kind of control my narrative. And that's what really comes down to the why is the pain I felt. I want to help other people through to not repeat that and level up and build their own confidence and brand. So that's the kind of thing is like discuss this, go a little couple levels deeper. This, why you're doing what you're doing and kind of the passion that's the next part of it. They get intertwined. And I think that the why for a lot of people comes down to something very personal, something that happened to them in their life, a trauma that triggered it, a pain, a health issue,
Exactly.
those kind of things that come up that was like, no way, this is my calling. These things happened because I am really passionate about sharing this and bringing this out into the world. So the next part of our is to find your uniqueness. It's, some of it got, they go hand in hand, what you're passionate and unique about. Um, I think some folks I've heard here really understand the deep why of what's like drove them on their path when they kind of look back at their story of what happened and why they're so passionate about it. I think there might be some layers still to uncover in some folks' story. So that being said, we're gonna just keep moving because all of a sudden the time is ticking. I thought we would be done in an hour, but we're gonna go over, and I hope we're okay with that. This next breakout will have breakouts, but we'll probably only have one or two people share their stories on the way back that are very passionate about. So this is the part that you understand your why. We've heard most folks here have had some kind of thing happen to their own bodies or their life circumstances got them to a place that are like, I don't, I'm passionate about bringing this service to others. So what makes you unique is, not only do you have the passion for that, you also have unique skills to do that. So you've done the research or you've started developing the podcast. You have a way of sharing your expertise to the world. And I can see that like from Elisa's perspective in her personal brand story, she has a strong why and she's also living her why. Like she is a role model, exactly taking her story through and then sharing it. She shares it very authentically on her channels and she has the expertise, the credentials. She all of the certificates and education and all of the things that help that, but she's also bringing that through. So you combine your passion and your experience and how you can differentiate and what makes you unique. And the things to keep in mind, you've got some of the basics here to start developing your story. You know your why and your unique passions. So now you want to think about, is it accurate? Like how coherent is it? Is it compelling and differentiated? So this is how I break it out. Like the accuracy, is it true? Because the authenticity rules. And I think everybody here is very authentic, so you're not going to have problems with that. But there's some folks out there that try to put themselves into a box in a direction that's really not authentically them. That's why I like to get into the why, what you're doing. Like, what is your heart? What is your story telling you? Does it make sense? This comes down to the conciseness and the jargon. When we're in different areas of our expertise, we start learning language that not everybody understands. And if you start using that language and you're trying to broaden it out, you lose people because it's too technical or it's jargony or whatever. So you have to bring it down that it really makes sense to people and it's concise. The next piece is like, is it compelling? Does it draw your audience in? This is the piece of the storytelling that I said that we wouldn't be able to cover today, but your target audience, who you're speaking to really matters. And I hear most of you really are targeting a lot of like women with specific niches, like health problems, what have you. So knowing your audience and making it compelling that draws them in is very critical. And then the last thing you already just covered in your breakout is how you're differentiated, your unique value, and how you bring it to the table. So it's more about your audience and a little bit about you, but this is, 4 pillars to ask yourself in your story development. So now, we have all this goodness, so many great stories ready to be told. But if you don't start addressing the barriers keeping you from telling your story, you probably won't. So, this is the part that I had struggled with, and I can hear some people too, like, oh, I'm not sure how much I want to share. Thinking about the barriers keeping from your story, the number one thing I hear about is I call it kind of this internal bully. It's imposter syndrome. And how many of you have heard of imposter syndrome? It's fairly widely known. Yes. And it's the definition really is when you feel like a fraud or you doubt your accomplishments despite all of your success. And it's something I struggle with on a regular basis. And I have a lot of practices, and I want to share some of those tips with you to build your confidence. And I think Olga and Elisa probably have more practices that can align to this. Maybe it's good news, maybe it's bad news, but everybody experiences this, including men. And it's been kind of niched as, this is a women's thing. No, it's not. 84% of business owners feel it, and 71% of CEOs, and most of those are men. So we're not alone in this, but being aware can help you just move past it faster. It's like an internal bully. Call it a different name and tell it to shut up. So let's get started on some of the tips to build confidence. And maybe in the chat too, you can share some tips that you might have. But I think when you look at yourself, it's good to kind of assess it from like, think of yourself as a neutral third party, giving yourself, and this is marketing jargon, a SWOT analysis. So SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So articulate for yourself, what you're good at. Like, what are you strong at? I could say Janelle's, got 25 years of marketing experience. She's good at that. She's helped big brands like Apple build their stories. She's good at that. So acknowledge that, put it on paper, and then it's okay to have weaknesses. We're not going to all be great at everything. But sometimes when you know the things you're not great at, that's a sign that you want other people to do that thing. I know Lisa and I have talked about this. Like, I don't like doing the numbers in the bookkeeping. That's the first thing I hired. I am not doing that. I am weak at that and I'm taking it away. And I can own that and I'm good with it. There might be things in your field that you're not as great at either. It's okay. Like, but just own it and not like judge yourself for it. The opportunity areas and the threat areas, I have seen for myself opportunities, seeing stepping back of like, wow, I really do have an opportunity to get stronger in my processes. Maybe I'm not buttoned up enough with some of these things. Because everything is a learning. And the biggest threat that I found for myself is my mindset. When I practice, when I journal, when I meditate, I build resilience in my mindset. And when I don't, it swoops in, imposter syndrome swoops in, and that's my biggest threat. It throws everything off. So, kind of seeing yourself, neutral third party, and assessing that gives you strength and kind of seeing the full picture. Then start building muscle for celebrating your successes. It's a muscle that I've had to really practice. And Lisa and I were in this Leap Academy, and this is the thing that I thought was cheesy, but it really is for real. When you have a daily practice of talking about what worked for you that day, what was a win, what can you celebrate, you start looking for it. And it's better to look for the things that are working than the things that are not. And it could be as simple as I got up and I meditated today. Elisa's like, I was up at 5 a.m. meditating. Like, that's a win, and start sharing that with people. And you have a group like this. On my team for Oak Bloom Marketing, we kick off our meetings with what's our win? And then reframing, huge. I'm not good enough. No, I'm learning. Yes. Take those things that pop into your mind and give it a new twist. You don't need the negative. Visualize your success, prepare for it, and then you've already got this covered. Build a supportive network. If you have a group like this with growth minded, supportive, authentic, I can feel the energy of this group is goodness. That is where you want to stay because those people will lift you up and give you the resilience. And then the other ones that you have trouble with aren't going to bring you down so much. You can be like, okay, if that's just them, no big deal because I got my people. So those are my top tips. And if there's a couple of shares, we can take time for if anybody wants to share anything that they do. Let's take 2 minutes if anybody wants to talk. I'm sure there's others.
I'll share.
Yes.
I've recently started to go to the gym.
Hmm.
I'm trying to be more consistent in going to the gym and taking care of my health in that way, getting stronger and lifting weights. And I notice when I'm consistent, like I don't go every day, but I do try to make a point to go at least 3 to 4 days a week. And when I'm consistent with that, I think just making a plan and following through with it builds me up. So it just right now the example is the gym, but other times it could be something else like, oh, I want to finish this book this month or something like that. So when I sit down and I read a chapter a day and I'm making an effort towards that and I accomplish what I've put on my list, then I feel empowered to do more. So,
It's
yeah.
great. And I love the gym. That's like it's another fuel building for me, just like meditation. Sakina, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm breastfeeding, so I will not put on my camera. um, but like I definitely like the working out stuff. I love it. Like I used to do it all the time, right? But now it seems stressful. So if I don't do it, I feel guilty. I feel like, oh, I'm not good enough, like it also works the other way around. So I'm trying to not actually, put my, how do you call it, my self-worth, that it's, that needs to be result oriented, right? It needs to be like I'm here, that should be enough for now. It also depends, I think, also where you are in life. I used to be definitely working out daily, etc., but that's not the case anymore. And I definitely will go there someday, but not now. But it breaks me sometimes, and sometimes it, yeah, like it breaks me and lifts me up. So goes both ways with me. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So if anyone has any tips later, then they're all welcome.
Yeah, and maybe it's like the goal is you want the relief from exercise and those endorphins, but the gym isn't part of your schedule, but you can put your kids in a stroller and run with them. I don't know. Like there's other ways, and I'm sure there's a lot of mothers here that have those ways of combining that can give you further tips. Any last quick, like maybe 15-second, if there's any final shares of how you build your confidence and resilience?
Accepting compliments,
Mm,
genuinely absorbing them
mm,
instead of trying to be polite and brushing them off or trying to flip it back on the other person.
mm,
Letting yourself be in that moment and letting the compliment wash over you and
mm.
allowing it to build up your confidence. That's
That's
been a muscle that I've had to flex.
that's a good one. That's just like celebrating successes is letting those things in. I love that. And that's definitely something I can work on. Thank you for sharing that. Is there any final questions or comments about the content today? I have one last couple of slides, but want to take any final comments here.
I was just going to add, I learned in some cultures that when someone pays you a compliment, if you say thank you, it's true. That is a way to fully absorb that. And I put that to practice, and you would be surprised how awkward it really is when you first start. So that's what I would recommend trying because it did a wonders for me.
Love that. Yes. Yeah, just letting it in is just acknowledging it with a thank you. It doesn't have to be any more than that. You don't have to explain away. You just take some space and thank them for it. Yes, beautiful.
And by the way, the compliments are not just for you when somebody's complimenting you. When you acknowledging and absorbing it and saying thank you, the other person feels like, oh, she takes in my compliment.
Hmm.
The moment you're saying a compliment and the other person say, oh, no, 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 it's not true, or no, no, and brushing it off, the other person feels like I just put in the energy to compliment her on the dancing, on her beauty or her grace or whatever. It's our duty actually to absorb that and take it, to
Hmm.
make the other person feel also fulfilled.
Hmm. That's beautiful too. Yeah, because it takes kind of courage to like take the time to compliment people. It is a muscle to compliment and receive the compliments. I know growing up in my family, it was not a very uh, point out the positive in each other kind of family upbringing. So to take the effort, look and do it takes a different level of energy because it hasn't been a muscle like we've been talking about. So, yes.
So, just one more thing to add on to that. When Samantha was sharing, like, how it's kind of awkward when you just say thank you, I've been learning this in my relationship with men is voicing my appreciation for whatever that person has done for me. So
Hmm.
if they've brought me a coffee, instead of just saying thank you, just like letting them know, like, that makes me feel so loved. It makes me feel so wanted. And having that same response if you're starting to feel awkward when you're first starting to receive compliments, instead of just saying thank you, just saying thank you so much for sharing that. It means so much to me that you said that. Like just tagging on to something else afterwards to let them know, not just thank you, but hey, that I really needed that compliment today. That really built up my confidence. You're so sweet and gracious for sharing that. I really appreciate your energy around me. Something like that.
Yeah, especially when you tie it back to how it made you feel. I think it's really
Yes.
powerful. Yeah, thank you for that. Well, ladies, this has been like super exciting. Is there any questions? But I do have just for the feminine circle folks, like a level 2 for this, if you're interested. But is there any questions about what we've done today before I move on with the upcoming workshop opportunities?
I had one particular question. I think it was something you mentioned a little bit earlier, how even using Amrita as an example, you want to join me? How sometimes I guess kind of coming to terms with what you're sharing with the world might not be for everyone.
Mhm.
So when you feel like, and this is something I feel I've had issues with when it comes to social media, that my content isn't necessarily getting in front of like my people, so to speak.
Mm.
And um, what does that usually mean, or how can you kind of reroute yourself in order to make sure you're kind of getting in front of the right people, is my question.
Yeah, so that comes down to the audience part of, building your story. Like, who is it that you're really trying to reach? And most people here, it sound like they do have women as primary trying to reach and service and help. So, and especially if you have a niche too, like some of the female health problems with menstruation, there's going to be an age range. They have to be in a menstrual flow cycle age range. So you're going to know more and more as you kind of layer in, like, who am I actually speaking to? And then when you're building out your content, that's when it comes down to the technical marketing stuff of keyword research and putting in tags and things like that that help reach them. But it is going to be probably a lot of word of mouth building too, as you get your story out there and you share it with more people and you're tagging, they're going to start sharing it. Elisa has an amazing story like that too. She shared a lot of videos and it grew organically, but it is time and consistency. Things don't necessarily go in the curve like this overnight. But when you build your content out, it's resonating with your audience, they will start to build and come. And then the channels that you decide to communicate in, depending on your audience too, will be important. And you don't have to do everything, right? Like you pick where your audience is most likely to be showing up. If you're ready, please sign up and let me know. And I have some other resources for you if um, you just want to absorb those. I do have my YouTube. I'm a baby YouTuber. I don't have that many subscribers yet. I will take you all to subscribe if you want to subscribe. They're very rudimentary videos. It's just me holding my hand, like talking. And I've used some funky apps. So if you find that out, that's a laugh. And I welcome you to check out. There's some really actionable tips on there. The content is valuable, even though it's clunky. And then my newsletter on LinkedIn, I have for Oak Bloom Marketing a couple of links I can share as well. Here, let me get those links. So, and these are all free resources for you that can help you on your journey. Here's